Soviet missions to Mars sent back footage no one was ready to see. For decades, Mars looked like humanity's future. Similar day length, polar ice caps, seasonal changes. Scientists believed it might hold water, ancient life, or even a second chance for civilization. Then the Soviet Union sent probes to the Red Planet, and what they transmitted back shattered every assumption we had about our cosmic neighbor. While NASA was cautiously planning flybys and orbiters, the Soviets took a different approach. They threw everything at Mars. Hard. Between 1960 and 1988, the Soviet Union launched over 20 missions to Mars. Most failed spectacularly, lost during launch, communication blackouts, crashes into the surface. But the ones that succeeded sent back data so unexpected, so disturbing, that it fundamentally changed how we think about planetary death. Mars captured human imagination for over a century. From Earth, you can see surface features, polar ice caps that grow and shrink with seasons, dark regions that seem to change color, patterns that looked disturbingly like canals. In the late 1800s, astronomer Percival Lowell became convinced he saw artificial canals crossing Mars. He published maps, he wrote books, he argued that an advanced Martian civilization was desperately channeling water from the poles to save their dying world. It was wrong, but the dream persisted. Even after the canals were debunked, Mars still looked promising. It had ice, it had seasons, a 24.6-hour day, almost identical to Earth's. Scientists believed that beneath the rust-colored dust, Mars might hold liquid water, volcanic activity, maybe even microbial life thriving in underground reserves. The Soviets wanted to be first to find it. The Soviet Mars program began in 1960 with missions that never even made it out of Earth's atmosphere. Launch failures, engine explosions, communication losses, but they kept trying. In 1971, Mars 2 and Mars 3 were launched. Both carried landers designed to touch down on the Martian surface and transmit images back to Earth. NASA's Mariner missions had already flown past Mars and photographed a cratered, dead-looking surface. But those were just flybys. The Soviets wanted boots on the ground, or at least metal on dirt. Mars 2's lander crashed. The descent system failed, and it slammed into the surface at high speed, becoming the first human-made object to reach Mars as wreckage. But Mars 3 succeeded. On December 2, 1971, the Mars 3 lander touched down in the southern hemisphere. It deployed, it activated, and for 14.5 seconds it transmitted data back to Earth. Then it went silent, forever. 14 seconds, that's all they got. But in those 14 seconds, the lander sent back a partial image, a grainy, distorted photograph that showed almost nothing, just noise, a faint gray blur, no clear features, no recognizable terrain. For years, scientists debated what caused the failure. Dust storm, equipment malfunction, the Martian environment itself? The footage was inconclusive, but the failure was absolute, and it set the tone for what was to come. NASA's Viking 1 landed successfully in 1976 and sent back the first clear images, a barren, rocky desert under a pink sky. No movement, no water, no life. But the Soviets weren't done. In 1988, they launched Phobos 1 and Phobos 2, missions designed not to land on Mars itself, but to study its mysterious moon, Phobos. This wasn't about finding life, it was about understanding something even stranger. Phobos is one of the most anomalous objects in the solar system. It orbits closer to Mars than any other moon orbits its planet.
It's irregularly shaped, like a potato or a captured asteroid, and it's covered in strange grooves and impact craters that some scientists thought looked almost artificial. Soviet scientist Yosef Shklovsky even speculated in the 1960s that Phobos might be hollow, possibly a defunct space station left behind by an ancient Martian civilization. It was a fringe theory, but it got attention. Phobos 1 lost contact shortly after launch due to a command error, but Phobos 2 made it to Mars. It entered orbit. It began photographing the moon. And then something bizarre happened. On March 27, 1989, Phobos 2 transmitted its final images. One of them showed the Martian surface below and a thin, elongated shadow stretching across the terrain. The shadow was narrow, perfectly straight, and didn't correspond to any known object. Some speculated it was the shadow of Phobos itself. Others noted the geometry didn't match. A few fringe theorists claimed it looked like the shadow of a cylindrical object, something between the spacecraft and Mars. Before Soviet Mission Control could investigate further, Phobos 2 stopped transmitting, permanently. The official explanation: onboard computer failure or orientation loss. The imagery was never fully explained, and because the Soviet Union collapsed shortly after, many of the mission records were lost, classified, or never published. To this day, that final image remains one of the most debated photos in Soviet space history. Here's what the Soviet missions to Mars ultimately revealed, not through success, but through failure. Mars isn't just barren, it's actively hostile. The atmosphere is 95% carbon dioxide and incredibly thin, only 1% the pressure of Earth's. You could stand on Mars without a spacesuit and your blood would boil from low pressure before you suffocated. Temperature averages minus 60 degrees Celsius, dropping to minus 125 degrees at the poles. There's no magnetic field, no ozone layer. Cosmic rays and solar radiation bombard the surface constantly, breaking down organic molecules and sterilizing the soil. Water can't exist as a liquid. The pressure is too low. Ice either sublimates into vapor or stays frozen. Mars isn't dormant, it's dead, and it's been dead for billions of years. Scientists now believe Mars once had rivers, lakes, maybe even oceans 3 to 4 billion years ago. But Mars is small, only half the diameter of Earth. It cooled faster. Its molten core solidified, shutting down the magnetic field that once protected it. Without that shield, solar wind stripped away the atmosphere over millions of years. The pressure dropped, the water evaporated or froze, the planet bled into space. Rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance have found ancient riverbeds, dried lake deposits, minerals that only form in liquid water. Mars once looked like Earth, and then it died. The Soviet landers only survived seconds or minutes on Mars. Their orbiters went silent without explanation. Their missions were riddled with failure. But what they discovered, or tried to discover, reshaped how we think about planets. They proved that Mars isn't humanity's second home. It's a graveyard, a monument to planetary death that happened long before humans existed. And maybe that's the footage no one was ready to see. Some worlds don't wait for us to save them. They die alone, in silence, while we're still learning to look up.